It is OTB AM, and we are going to get stuck into the football last night. Daivd Meyler, I believe, is standing by. Morning to you, David.
Good morning.
We're all looking at, we switched over after the Ireland game last night and we watched a bit of analysis, and we all caught the penalties in the Scotland game and the jubilation that was there, and we're looking at that and thinking our lot is not amazing at the minute here. But regardless of the result last night, and the performance obviously was the thing that was maybe largely disappointing, but hope is not lost when we look at Scotland.
No, definitely not. Look, of course we'd love to qualify for the Euros. There's no doubt in that. I'm quite happy for Scotland in a way. They've not had it for 22 years, and I know, a few lads I've played with them at club level and that, so I'm kind of happy for them. But looking back on our own game, look, it was never going to be easy. It was, Stephen took on the game against England, who are, the fourth ranked side in the world. I know, look, you can talk about Harry Kane, Sterling, Rashford didn't play. Still, every one of those players is playing week in, week out in the Premier League. If you go through this, if you go through the team with, Pope, Maguire, Keane, they're all playing week in, week out. So it was going to be tough, and it was a tough evening. It was a hard game, but look, they've just got to pick themselves up. I don't think Stephen's campaign will be judged off friendlies. It's more about, the upcoming games, and then of course, the World Cup qualifiers next year.
Yeah, the biggest thing that, like, listening to Matt Doherty after the game, I'm sure you heard the comments where he said it was embarrassing coming off the pitch. He talked about the heads going down after a couple of goals went in. It was pretty obvious just looking at the game that was the case. Roy Keane talked about there needing to be more fight. Not even a booking was what he said. England had tougher training games. So if you forget about the dynamics of the game almost to a degree, which will be largely irrelevant when the story is written, it's that lack of fight almost this morning that's the biggest frustration.
Yeah, look, I saw a match. You can tell he's frustrated from the game. You could just see in his post-match interview talking about, like, kind of, it almost felt like they gave up second half, and it was probably one of those where they felt that they couldn't get into a rhythm. The opening 20 minutes of the game, it was very good from Ireland in the sense that they got on the ball, they were knocking it about, but then once kind of Egan went off, I kind of felt the balance was lost. It's very tough for a player to come in, with Darragh Shea coming on, and it is tough, but you can talk about the fight, but they're a very good team and they knock the ball around really well, and you could almost say that English team last night that played, about 7 or 8 of them have something to prove because they want to put their names into the hat. So it was always going to be a tough ask, but at the same time I did expect more, in the sense of, like, never mind yellow cards, whatever, but like Matt touched on, kind of grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. There was opportunities to play against England don't come around often, and that it's almost as if that game passed the majority of players by, in the sense that it was over before you knew it. And the goals will be, I think that's the frustrating thing for Stephen. The 2 goals are second phases off set pieces. That's stuff that can be rectified when the ball goes wide, getting the line up or getting solid, getting back in. They had good set up from corners or whatever, and then of course Cyrus giving away the penalty. Stuff like that can be avoided, but look, last night's game is not gonna, we won't judge Stephen on that, so I wouldn't read too much into it. Now it's just about his man management, getting the players right for the game on Sunday against Wales.
Yeah, but on the back of it, is there a possibility, David, that, like, the lack of chances that we were creating last night, the fact that the heads go down, the fact that the players know that we can't score goals, the fact that there's a bit of a lack of fight there, is that the sort of thing that, obviously it's over the very early courses of his tenure, but is it the sort of thing that can set into a team's psyche, that suddenly they are a little bit weak mentally and a bit unsure of themselves as they look at the minute?
No, I wouldn't be throwing around weak mentally. I think that's wrong. You've got to stop and step back and look at this, from the wide angle, and think, we're playing England. They're a good team. We're in a different way of looking at the moment. We're focusing on of course, finishing the Nations League strong for rankings, and then of course starting the World Cup campaign. They're on course. They want to be winning the European Championships next year. That's where their aim is. Do you know what I mean? That's where they're at. We're at a different transition. You look at McGoldrick is obviously just retired. Adam Eade is he's only a young lad. He's 19. There's a lot you can look at in the sense that we are in transition. I actually do feel sorry for Stephen in the sense that Seamus picks up a knock the night before. James McCarthy is out. Then Aaron Connolly's out. Callum Robinson, of course, is unfortunate. I believe he's contracted COVID. I don't think any other Ireland manager has faced so much in such a short period of time in his camps that there's always seems to be like a small problem, even after the Finland game the last time. When he spoke, I saw him on off the ball and he spoke well, and the difficulties he faced with Aaron Connolly and Adam being too close to people on the flight and stuff like that. And then of course he comes away and there's another 3-4 players have dropped out. I believe Shane Long was contacted to come up and he has a knock. It's just there's a lot of difficulties. But then you've got to think we're playing England as well. Of course, there's a lot of talk in the build-up about England haven't beaten us in 35 years. But even if you look back and the 1-1 that we played a few years ago when Shane scored, England still dominated the ball. They're going to do that against the majority of countries. Never mind Ireland. Of course, you wanted to see a little bit more in the performance, but last night's game was a really tough one. It's not as if it was. I don't want to disrespect them, but like a kind of a Georgia or an Orman where you're thinking, come on, lads, put the ball in the back of the net or get it down, knock it around for 90 minutes. It was going to always be very difficult. And a lot of those lads was probably their first time playing at Wembley, playing at that big open pitch. It was a tough one. And I think people have been a bit, quick to criticise. Of course, yes, I personally want to see more, but, you've got to look at it from the big picture.
If you're a player who played last night, David, and the player who gets picked again for a Sunday, how do you go out and disprove the things that Matt Doherty is saying? How do you prove that you do want it enough and that you're not going to come off the pitch in an embarrassed state on Sunday?
Yeah, but they're Matt's personal comments. That's how he felt after the game.
Sure.
Obviously Matt has had great success with Wolves. He's having good success with Tottenham at the moment. So Matt is coming from that winning environment or that winning change room where they're going out and they're winning games, and then he comes away and he's not having the same buzz, which he's desperate for. He'd probably rather win with Ireland more, than Spurs. In the sense of you've got a game against Wales, two teams that are on level par. Of course, look, when Bale and Ramsey play, they're probably the two exceptional players that stand out. But you should never have to pick yourself up, for an Ireland game. Look, I've harped on enough times about it's the biggest honour of my career, and I've no doubt it's the biggest for all them. The big thing is, look, Stephen is a very good manager and he's tactically aware and whatever. Now he's got to pick his team up to go out and put a performance in Sunday, this is the testament of the manager he is, because you need to get those fellas to forget about the game and go out and put in a performance against Wales on Sunday.
Does Stephen Kenny need to tweak anything? Maybe not with his philosophy, but maybe just in terms of his template tactically. Like you think back to Antonio Conte as Chelsea manager, and they got humbled by Arsenal. I think 3-0 was the scoreline as well, and he completely overhauled his formation. I don't think anybody's asking for that, given the difference in quality on the pitch last night. But what tweaks would you like to see from a management perspective, if any?
It's very difficult to start tweaking, especially in international camps, in the sense that, like, if you look at it now, it's Friday morning. The players who have played will be recovering. The ones who played, even the ones who come on if they played, depending on how long they've played. Others will have probably a light training session, and even say, tomorrow's your match day -1. You're a day out from the game. The lads who still played the chunk of the game will still probably be recovering. So it's hard to, tactically change something. Like if you're going along the lines of, do we switch formations, blah blah blah. I think the one tweak I would love to see is a full, fit and available Ireland team with no problems. Of course, that's very difficult. You'd listen. I've been listening to Seamus speaking in the build-up, and then you just hear 2 hours before kickoff, he's picked up a knock and he's ruled out. And then, of course, like the other lads I mentioned, it's just he's always had something to face where he's chopping and changing. I hope, John Egan obviously went off. It looked like the collision with Conor Howland. I think John has built up a good partnership with Duffy, albeit I know Shane's had some critics over some of his club performances, but I wouldn't question him, his character. I think he'll be fine. But you just kind of want to really see a stable 11 in the sense that it's the same team, that Stephen can work closely with them. But you look at then, if you want to take positives, I think Jason Malumbi coming on last night, albeit, the game is kind of dead and buried, but there was a creative spark, and there was drive, and there was energy in it. So tactically, I wouldn't be tweaking too much. I'd be just dusting them down, looking at it, where, like I said, if you looked at the goals, I know Cyrus would be really disappointed to get caught with that by Saka skipping by him. But then it's just the second phases off set pieces. So you imagine, Keith Andrews, Damien Duff will be going through this, and they'll be probably scratching their heads going, looking back and going, yeah, we could probably have avoided these goals. But look, there's enough stuff to work on. And that, like I said again, and I'm going to keep repeating it, we can't be too critical because England are a very good team.
What are we? I hear, I'm not complaining about us playing football. I know very few that are, but are we a bit too determined at times to play the ball out from the back? Like, you look at times last night, England had 4 or 5 press up, and very difficult for us to make any headway with that. Like, is there a time in the game to thump it long, to abandon ship and try to play it out from the back?
Yeah, 100%. You almost have to earn the right to play out from the back. When you start doing it, of course, you're going to invite teams onto you. Liverpool have been the best at it for the last 2-3 years. They set traps. England at times will leave our centre-halves have the ball, and then it's, as you said, they press in numbers. Then it's, can you play around the press, which is always going to be difficult. But every now and then you do need to play it long, play it up to Adam, who could get hold of it and link the play, just to stretch England's defence, kind of push the back. At times when we did break, that's kind of where the joy went, where, there was one occasion when the ball came out to Adam, he lays it off, and, Darrell Horgan gets in and he puts a good cross into a good area. But then it's just, then you kind of earn the right to play out, because England then suddenly start to think like, oh, they're going to go long. Are we set up? There could, look, at times, yes, there's an overemphasis on playing, but you need to, find the right times to play. And when you lose in possession, I think that would be another big thing, that we did turn over possession a bit. Well, we turned it over too much, not a bit too much. We did lose possession. Those things would be frustrating, because I think they're avoidable. Of course, if you have a player trying something in the final third or in a key area where we're looking to, put someone in for a goal scoring opportunity or get down the side for a cross, then fine, you don't mind that. It's just turning over possession in our, say, our defensive third, kind of around the halfway line. We can't afford to be giving the ball away in those key areas. But look, there's enough stuff that was good, and it was also a good test for the lads to say, like, this is where England are at. Yes, it wasn't England's full strength 11, but that's the level where we need to get to for international football, so that we're qualifying for major tournaments.
You've been a great voice of reason this morning, David. We're all down on our luck here, but you brought a bit of sensibility.
Well, do you know what? Yeah, but that's the thing. It's the popular thing nowadays is to be negative, and it's the quick to judge players and whatever. Like, it was a tough game. There's no getting away from that. Yeah, the performance could have been better, but like I said, Stephen's not going to be judged. The players, they would have wanted to do better against England. We'd harped on over 35 years they've not beaten us. We've had 6 draws in between. Can we get a result so that, we keep that going? I think gone are the days of the rivalry between Ireland and England, in the sense, if you look at the tackles, or, there was no kind of fire, or, it might have been different if there was a full crowd there, but it was always going to be tough. And you've got to kind of take your hat off to Stephen for taking on the game. I saw Kevin Doyle talking, where could we have done a camp leading into the Wales game, but he chose to take on the England game. I know you have to play a certain amount of games with FIFA rankings and what have you, but fair play to them, and it was a lesson. England probably were only in third gear, but it's something it's a platform that they can build on. If people are going to be talking about, oh well, we're not scoring, blah blah blah, it's very difficult to score against England. Even if he has a full strength 11 and everyone available to him, it was still going to be a tough ask. So I wouldn't be looking at that. Look, we could have a totally different conversation come Monday morning or Sunday evening after the Wales game. That's the game that we need to go and put a performance in, create chances and score goals. And then look, if we get a result against Wales and then lead into the Bulgaria game and get another result, people won't be talking about the England game. That's how, football's fickle like that, because it moves on so quickly. So it's a big game come Sunday, and, the lads have got to dust themselves down. Stephen's got to get them ready, organised, and, go out and put on a performance. Just see the positives of creating chances, and please God, somebody's going to stick the ball in the back of the net.